There's no denying that Dolly Parton is an American institution and a country music legend. But despite her distinguished career as a singer, writer, actor, and director, Dolly has endured an incredible number of challenges and tragedies throughout her life. From her humble beginnings to her early struggles to her darkest moments, here's the tragic real-life story of Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton was born in 1946 in a one-room cabin in Locust Ridge, Tennessee, the fourth child of an illiterate sharecropper and a housewife who birthed 12 kids before the age of 35. Life wasn't exactly easy for the Parton family. The nights were excruciatingly cold. She shared a bed with her younger siblings, and the children often had to wash in a river using soap they made themselves. But Parton isn't bitter about her hardscrabble roots. In fact, she told People magazine that she's grateful for the lessons her parents taught her in thrift and financial responsibility. She said, "No matter how much money I make, I'll always count my blessings quicker and more often than I count my money." Luckily, Parton's wild and free-ranging childhood in the Appalachian Mountains has provided endless songwriting inspiration. One of her first big hits, "Coat of Many Colors," tells the story of a coat a mother lovingly sews for her daughter out of donated rags. The coat draws mockery from the girl's schoolmates, but she knows that while her family might be short of money, they're at least rich with love. It's no surprise that story has its roots in Parton's own childhood. Parton learned to love music thanks to her mother's side of the family, and much of her knowledge of gospel, country, and bluegrass came courtesy of her maternal grandfather, a Pentecostal preacher.
My mother's people were very musical, so music was not rare in our family. There were always instruments around. Everybody played some sort of a musical instrument.
Parton started writing songs at the age of 7, got her first guitar at 8, and began performing on television at 10. The day after she graduated high school, she left her home in the Appalachian Mountains for Nashville in the hopes of finding fame in the country music capital of the world. The road to success rarely runs smooth, however, and Parton, who wanted to record country songs, was shoehorned by her label into the pop genre because executives thought her looks and voice were ill-suited to country. It took some time, but she was eventually allowed to make the kind of music she wanted to, and her debut country single Dumb Blonde made it to number 24 in the charts. After that, the hits kept coming, and in 1967, Monument Records released Hello, I'm Dolly, the album that made it clear once and for all that Parton was always destined for bluegrass and not bubblegum. In 1967, following the release of Hello, I'm Dolly, Parton was handpicked by Nashville legend Porter Wagoner to appear on his roadshow and television variety program. Wagoner was immediately bewitched by the 20-year-old Parton's beauty, brains, and talent. She found it more difficult to win over his fans, however, who were more used to seeing a songstress named Norma Jean by his side. But Norma Jean had bowed out of the show in order to get married. Parton, meanwhile, didn't exactly get a warm welcome during her first appearances on the show. A number of audience members even greeted her by chanting Norma Jean's name. But it didn't take long for Parton to win over Wagoner's most loyal watchers, and it was with her help that the Porter Wagoner show rocketed to the top of the television ratings. At the height of their fame, Parton and Wagoner were drawing a weekly viewership of 3.5 million, and their duets are considered some of the best co-ed efforts of the country music genre. This may come as a surprise to fans of Dolly Parton and Whitney Houston, but the tear-jerking ballad I Will Always Love You isn't really about a romantic love affair at all. It's about a professional partnership that had run its course. In 1974, Parton was 28 years old and intent upon pursuing a solo career, but that meant breaking up with her longtime mentor, collaborator, and friend, Porter Wagoner. She'd been appearing on his television show for 7 years, and for Parton, who had only planned to stay on the show for 5 years, it was long past time to go out on her own. Parton believed she had paid her dues, but Wagoner disagreed. In fact, he was distraught over her decision to leave and tried to talk her out of it. So Parton tackled the situation the best way she knew how, by writing a song. After confronting Wagoner, she went home and wrote I Will Always Love You. The next day, she performed it for him, and deeply touched, Wagoner agreed to let her go. Although that seems like a nice enough ending for this story, things didn't stay so rosy between the two. In fact, Wagoner went on to sue Parton for breach of contract, and the two feuded for years afterwards before finally calling a truce and ending up friends. True to the spirit of the song, Parton was by Wagoner's side when he died in 2007. Growing up in a large, impoverished family, Parton often mothered her siblings. Later, when she moved to Nashville to pursue a singing and songwriting career, she even brought a number of her brothers and sisters and their children to live with her. And when she married her husband, Carl Thomas Dean, in 1966, the two lovebirds talked about having children. According to an interview with Parton in The Guardian, she and her husband wondered what their kids would be like, threw names around, and dreamed of becoming parents. But nothing happened. Parton's childbearing years came and went, and she and Dean eventually faced the fact that they would never have children of their own. Parton is very much accepting of her childlessness. In fact, she celebrates it. If she'd become a mother, she's not sure she would have been able to tour as she has, or become the star she was probably always meant to be. And now she's also become a mother figure to thousands of children all over the world who have the privilege of reading her children's books, enjoying her songs meant for young listeners, and benefiting from her charity, Imagination Library, which has donated more than 100 million free books to kids. Maybe it's because her first big hit was Dumb Blonde, but for years people dismissed Dolly Parton as something of a small-brained ditz, enslaved to plastic surgery and obsessed with the spotlight. Even renowned feminist Barbara Walters was pretty harsh towards Parton in a 1977 interview. Walters even went so far as to suggest that Parton was little more than a joke. But the thing about Dolly is that she's really damn smart. Not only is she funny and brilliant and quick on her feet, but she also clearly knows how to build an empire from pretty much nothing, hence her estimated net worth of $500 million. Of course, Parton would be the first to say that money isn't everything, which is true. And it's also true that she's never thought of herself as a pretty girl, so she piles on the makeup and the high hair and pours herself into high heels to try to enhance what God gave her. But you also can't argue with the kind of success she's achieved, or with her colorful comeback to Barbara Walters' wrong-headed condescension. For a long time, Dolly Parton was infamously apolitical. She and the very liberal Jane Fonda even made sure to stay away from discussing politics while on the set of 9 to 5 in order to keep the peace. Over time, though, Parton has had politics thrust upon her, namely in the area of gay rights. Ever since the 80s and 90s, she has been a gay icon and go-to for drag queens around the world. Since then, Parton has embraced the gay community in a myriad of ways, including devoting a special day to the LGBTQ community at her Dollywood theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. That move invited the ire of the local chapter of the Ku Klux Klan, whose members have protested Dollywood's so-called Gay Day and periodically rattled the singer with threats against her life. Obviously, however, Parton isn't one to be intimidated by hate groups. She later told the New York Daily News, "If I was gay, I would have come out of the closet just a flying." Having lived for over 8 decades, Dolly Parton has experienced her fair share of loss, but perhaps one of the most tragic losses in a long line of them has been that of her niece, Tever Parton, who died of a drug overdose at age 36. Dolly had been trying to help Tever overcome her problems with addiction and even paid to send her to rehab, but in the end, the mother of 2 succumbed to her substance abuse. Just a month prior to Tever's death in April of 2017, Parton saw the passing of her manager, Don Warden, whom she'd met in 1967 on the set of The Porter Wagoner Show. Warden died at age 87 of natural causes. Parton responded to Warden's death with the perfect line, which of course she wrote herself, "I will always love you." When Dolly Parton opened her country western theme park Dollywood, she did so with history firmly in mind. The land the park stands on has a storied past, having served as an attraction in the Pigeon Forge area since 1961 when it was the Rebel Railroad. Parton bought the property in 1986, added a number of new attractions, and since then Dollywood has become one of America's most popular theme parks. But it has also seen a spate of serious injuries, leading to a number of lawsuits and plenty of bad press. The most recent of these lawsuits was brought by a mother of 2 who claims that her experience on the River Rush water coaster ended with partial paralyzation. According to TMZ, the woman was propelled off her seat and struck her spine on a hard surface. As of 2019, she's suing Parton for $2 million. Another such case put the spotlight on Dollywood's safety record in 2014. A woman fell and struck her head on the pavement while exiting one of the park's swing rides. She suffered spinal and neck injuries, as well as a broken jaw, and sued for $475,000. The 2 parties settled out of court. Dolly Parton has always been an optimist, and hey, anyone who's lived her kind of rags-to-riches story would be. But being an optimist doesn't mean that your life or your mental health are in perfect condition, and there was a time when she got so low, she contemplated ending it all. This dark period came back in the early 80s when she had what she would later call an affair of the heart. Parton has been married to her husband Carl Dean since 1966, and the emotional cheating she felt she had committed sent her into a deep depression. According to People magazine, the fallout from the affair led to her binge eating, which gave rise to a number of health issues. She was also juggling family drama at the time and had been receiving random threats against her life, and had just finished a nightmarishly difficult ordeal on a film project. She even canceled a spate of performances and bowed out of the entertainment business for 2 years. At her lowest point, she found herself weighing up whether or not to take her own life. Then her dog Popeye came running up the stairs, and the pitter-patter of his nails shocked her back to reality. She considers Popeye's appearance at that pivotal time as a message from God and credits her own brush with rock bottom with helping her understand the often desperate plights of others.
I've done something good. I've done plenty bad, I'm sure. But I just hope that I'll be remembered well.
While Disneyland is officially the happiest place on Earth, the actual happiest place on Earth, or at least in Tennessee, has to be Dollywood. It's a unique theme park with a wild story, so here's a lot of stuff you don't know about America's most down-home entertainment destination. Even though Dolly Parton poured a substantial fortune into the theme park in the mid-1980s and agreed to be its face, Dollywood isn't the property of the woman who wrote both I Will Always Love You and Jolene on the same day. Parton is merely a co-owner and a partner in the business, albeit an active and hands-on one. The Dollywood complex is owned primarily and operated by Herschend Family Entertainment. Like Disney or Six Flags, Herschend controls a vast portfolio of theme parks and tourist traps, of which Dollywood is simply one entry. The company also controls Silver Dollar City, Talking Rock's Cavern, and Whitewater in Branson, Missouri. Plus there's Wild Adventures and Stone Mountain Park in Georgia, an aquarium in Cincinnati, and various resorts and theme restaurants including Dolly Parton's Stampede. Dollywood opened its gates in 1986 to a very welcoming public. Traffic was backed up for 6 miles on opening day. But it's not the first time there was ever a theme park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. Dollywood sits atop an amusement park graveyard. The makings of Dollywood were first opened in 1961 as a modest, family-run 19th century-themed park called Rebel Railroad. It offered little more than a general store, a blacksmith, and a coal-run steam engine that took visitors on a ride through the Great Smoky Mountains. In 1970, Cleveland Browns owner Art Modell bought Rebel Railroad and renamed it Gold Rush Junction. But 6 years later, he unloaded it to the Herschend family, who, along with Parton, helped expand and popularize the park from small regional attraction into a top-tier destination. And it worked. In its first year as Dollywood, the park brought in 1.3 million guests, an increase of 75% from the previous year. Dolly Parton made a somewhat out-of-left-field choice in 1986 when she took some of the money earned from writing and singing the song 9 to 5 and starring in the movie 9 to 5 to buy a portion of a theme park. Parton did it to make good on a promise she made to herself long ago. Parton said during a speech at a Dollywood 25th anniversary celebration in 2011, "I always thought that if I made it big or got successful at what I had started out to do, that I wanted to come back to my part of the country and do something great." Parton was raised only a few miles away from Dollywood's locale of Pigeon Forge in Sevierville, Tennessee, and was the fourth of 12 kids. And Parton has made good on her promise. The entire Dollywood enterprise has injected millions into the local economy and employs about 3,000 people, making it the biggest source of jobs in the area. Dollywood's home is in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, which is very different than the populated parts of Southern California and Florida that Disneyland and Disney World call home. It takes about 45 minutes to get to Dollywood from the nearest airport in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is to say that Dollywood isn't the first thing that comes to mind when someone thinks of a massive theme park. But it should be, because Dollywood is surprisingly huge. The amusement park is just one part of an interconnected network of attractions that spans 150 acres, roughly the original size of Disneyland. Right next door sits the Splash Country Water Park, another amusement park called Wildwood Grove, the Dreammore Resort and Spa, plus rental cabins. Altogether, Dollywood welcomes about 2.5 million visitors every year, making it the most popular ticketed destination in the state of Tennessee. An amusement park requires lots of people and lots of technology, and as neither man nor machine is perfect, there are going to be some mistakes. But mistakes at a theme park means there's a chance for calamitous injury, and people have reportedly gotten themselves seriously hurt at Dollywood on occasion. According to TMZ, in December 2018, a female guest of the park boarded a bus-like trolley to take a ride back from the amusement park to her lodgings at the Dreammore Resort at the end of the day. However, the woman attests that the conditions weren't great, with fog and rain making it difficult for the driver to see, and he slammed into a concrete pole. The woman sued, and according to her filings, she and 5 other riders experienced injuries which were treated at a local medical center. Another victim sued in 2019, alleging that their trolley driver was drunk at the time of the incident. However, Dollywood's lawyers were busy with another suit over a different mishap in 2018. TMZ reported that a woman served papers after claiming she endured a compression fracture and other injuries to her spine after something went wrong on the River Rush water coaster at Splash Country. The woman was reportedly tossed in the air and came down hard on her back inside the raft, which doesn't sound like a fun day at the park. For more than 30 years now, Dolly Parton has been an extremely active co-owner in Dollywood. She's given the park her image, her money, and her time, and she's visited the park both to protect her investment and greet her adoring fans dozens of times. And yet there's one thing Parton won't do when it comes to Dollywood. She refuses to board any of the park's numerous thrill rides.
Well, I have to be honest with you. I don't ride the rides. I always make jokes, but it's the truth, too. I have too much to lose.
And what does she have to lose exactly? She thinks they might damage her image. Parton told the New York Times, "With all my hair, I got so much to lose, like my wig or my shoes. I don't like to get messed up. I'm going to have some handsome man mess it up. I don't want some ride doing it." But that doesn't mean Parton stays out of Dollywood entirely. Until 2011, she kept a small, well-furnished apartment inside the park. Dollywood is a living, working example of good old American themes and values in action. Nestled within the fabled Great Smoky Mountains, the park is operated by thousands of people who live in nearby small towns. How much more American could Dollywood get? Well, the answer to that is plenty, because the place is also home to a number of bald eagles, the official symbolic bird of the United States of America. After all, the Dollywood grounds are up against the Eagle Mountain Sanctuary, home to the largest number of needy bald eagles in one place in the entire U.S. More than 24 eagles, which are non-releasable and would be unable to live in the wild on their own, call the Eagle Mountain Sanctuary home. It's a 400,000 cubic feet area perched on the side of a tree-covered hill. Staff feed, water, and once a year medically treat the birds via 5 enclosures, including a breeding ground called the, quote, pick-a-mate section.
We've also done a lot of eagle rehabilitation. We breed non-releasable parent birds and release their young into the wild to help repopulate this area.
And Dollywood guests can see all this from inside the theme park. After all, Dollywood works in partnership with the American Eagle Foundation, the organization in charge of the sanctuary, so the park isn't just about fun rides and food. It's also about taking care of America's most beloved birds. Back in March of 2011, Olivier Odom walked into Splash Country, Dollywood's water park, with her wife and the kids of a friend in tow. Odom wore what most people wear to a water park, a t-shirt. But she was barred from entry by a gate attendant because of the words written on her shirt. And what was written there, you ask? Well, the shirt said, quote, "Marriage is so gay," a quippy statement proclaiming Odom's support for same-sex marriage. Things got intense when the Dollywood worker ordered Odom to turn the t-shirt inside out or not enter the park at all. Dollywood Public Relations Director Pete Owens told The Advocate, "Thousands of times a day, our front gate hosts are asked to enforce our dress code policy. It doesn't have anything to do with who the people are or what their belief system is." Owens added that the policy is more about preventing one of our guests being offended by something someone else is wearing. Odom told an NBC outlet, "I was curious what he found offensive about the shirt, if it was the fact that it had the word gay on it or that it was in conjunction with the word marriage." Odom sent a letter of complaint to Dollywood, which was answered personally and publicly by Parton. She said in a statement, "Everyone knows of my personal support of the gay and lesbian community. Dollywood is a family park, and all families are welcome." And Parton has always vocally been an advocate for LGBTQ rights.
We are who we are. If you're gay, you're gay. If you're straight, you're straight. And you should be allowed to be, how you are.
Since it's attached to Dolly Parton, one of the most flamboyant, charismatic country stars of all time, Dollywood is a pretty unique place. Guests who visit Dollywood are able to visit some one-of-a-kind attractions, or at least ones that are rarely found at other big corporate theme parks elsewhere in the United States. It's pretty rare to find a church within walking distance of a roller coaster, and yet Dollywood is home to the Robert F. Thomas Chapel. It predates the site's run as Dollywood, as it was built and opened in 1973 when the park was still known as Gold Rush Junction. So who's Robert F. Thomas? He's the doctor who delivered baby Dolly Parton in 1946, although interestingly, the chapel was named in his honor even before Parton bought into the theme park. He was a beloved doctor in the area who helped lots of families, including the Partons. It's designed in the style of a church one would find in Appalachia in the early 1900s, and it hosts weekly Christian religious services every Sunday during the Dollywood season. With thousands of visitors trekking through each day and buying food and drinks that come in disposable paper and plastic containers, amusement parks generate a massive amount of waste. Dollywood, of course, has plenty of trash cans scattered around its grounds, but there are no opportunities for guests to recycle or compost the eligible parts of their trash. That doesn't mean Dollywood is contributing to slow buildup of garbage that will one day consume the planet. It just prefers to do its part for the green movement off-site and away from the eyes and off the minds of visitors. Dollywood utilizes the local severe solid waste composting facility. All of the refuse from the park, like trash, recyclables, and compost, are all thrown into the same cans when it arrives at the plant. The facility mixes it all up with biosolids, and anything organic gets separated out and turned into compost. Dollywood is one of the biggest clients of the severe solid waste composting facility, which features an innovative and progressive method of dealing with trash, and it greatly cuts down on the amount of garbage that would otherwise head to rot in a landfill. Not only did Dolly Parton want to give back to the community where she was raised with a world-class theme park and thousands of jobs, but she also wanted to funnel profits into charitable causes that help out needy locals. For years before Dollywood opened, Parton donated money to the nearby Sevier County High School's band to be used for scholarships, but the country star wanted to do more. So in 1988, Parton helped create the Dollywood Foundation. Numerous Tennessee high school kids received scholarships by way of the charity, and in 1995, the foundation expanded its reach to early education around the country. Parton's Imagination Library grew out of her foundation and sends free books to any kid whose loved ones sign them up. The books keep coming from birth until they start school. Parton's charitable organization branched out again to include the My People Fund, which notably donated $200,000 in 2016 to 8 volunteer fire departments that fought off wildfires in Tennessee.
It makes me feel like I've done something good with my life and with my success.
Both Parton and Dollywood are doing a whole lot of good in the world.
Dolly Parton once referred to Naomi Judd as her sister, so Judd's tragic passing on April 30th, 2022 left the music icon shocked and saddened. Keep watching for an inside look at the long-lasting friendship between the two country superstars. The world was stunned to learn of the sudden death of country music matriarch Naomi Judd at the age of 76. Judd made her name performing alongside her daughter Winona in the chart-topping duo The Judds. As news spread of Judd's death, words of remembrance came from other musicians who knew her. Country superstar Carrie Underwood wrote on Twitter, "Country music lost a true legend." Country singer Travis Tritt also gave his condolences on social media, tweeting, "This is heartbreaking news. Naomi Judd was one of the sweetest people I've ever known." In addition to a string of #1 hits and a 3-decade career in music, Naomi Judd was mother to actress Ashley Judd. The Judds had only just recently been accepted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Naomi died the night before the ceremony. It was later revealed that Judd's cause of death was likely suicide. One touching statement came from country music legend Dolly Parton, a peer with whom Judd had a long friendship. In an interview with Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live in 2021, Naomi Judd spoke candidly with the host about how close she was with Dolly Parton. Like Judd, Parton scored some of her biggest hits in the 80s. The two friends were also the same age. In her interview with Cohen, Judd called Dolly her girlfriend and revealed just how intimate the two friends really were. Judd revealed to Cohen,
"I've seen Dolly naked."
To prove it, Judd gave details about some previously unknown tattoos Parton has on her body.
She might have a butterfly tattoo.
In the same interview, Judd offered up a Dollyism from around that same time. According to Judd, Parton told her,
"Well, if you're like me, the older you get, the less makeup, but the more underwear you wear."
In Parton's statement, shared on Twitter after she learned of Judd's death, the 9 to 5 singer explained just how many similarities she shared with Judd. In addition to being successful musicians, actresses, and authors, Parton and Judd were both Capricorns. They also both loved big hair and makeup, according to Parton. Parton never performed with Naomi solo or with the Judds, but she did make an appearance in 1995 in Naomi and Winona, Love Can Build a Bridge, a biographical film about the mother-daughter singing group. Also, early on in their career, the Judds performed Parton's song Coat of Many Colors on The Ralph Emery Show. Parton concluded her touching tribute on Twitter to Naomi Judd with the statement, "Just know that I will always love you." This was likely directed at her old friend Naomi Judd, but also to Judd's daughters Winona and Ashley, all three of whom Parton referred to as sisters. Parton also apologized for missing the Judds Country Music Hall of Fame induction ceremony, at which Winona and Ashley Judd made an emotional appearance. Winona Judd said at the ceremony, "I didn't prepare anything tonight because I knew that Mom would probably talk the most. I feel so blessed, and it's a very strange dynamic to be this broken and this blessed. But though my heart is broken, I will continue to sing." Following that, Ashley added, "I'm sorry that you couldn't hang on until today." Naomi Judd first wrote of her mental health issues in her 2016 book River of Time, My Descent into Depression and How I Emerged with Hope. In 2014, Parton said depression also runs in her family. Additionally, on the 2019 podcast Dolly Parton's America, Parton also confessed to contemplating suicide at one point in her life. In their statement announcing the death of their mother, the Judd family wrote, "We are shattered. We are navigating profound grief and know that as we loved her, she was loved by her public. We are in unknown territory." An investigation into the death of Naomi Judd is ongoing. Dolly Parton is one of the most famous, most successful, and most universally beloved performers in American history. Parton wasn't born into showbiz. She came from humble beginnings, and she wasn't alone. Parton is one of 12 children, all of whom have their own story to tell. Dolly Parton is the fourth oldest sibling in a family that would come to include a total of 12 children born to Robert and Abby Lee Parton. Robert Lee Parton came from a long line of farmers, and early in adulthood, he toiled as a sharecropper. By the time Dolly turned 5 in 1951, Lee had acquired his own parcel of land in Sevier County, Tennessee, which he used to farm tobacco and raise livestock. To help fund his large family's needs, he also worked in construction. The patriarch of the Parton family died in August 2003 at age 79 after suffering from a series of strokes. His death preceded 80-year-old Abby Lee's by 4 months. The couple married in 1939 when Abby, raised in a family of musicians and the daughter of a South Carolina preacher, was just 19 years old. While Dolly Parton was storming her way up the country charts over and over again in the 1960s and 1970s, her younger sister Stella Parton was right there behind her. Not only has she formed her own record label, but since the early 70s, she's released more than 30 albums full of country, traditional, and spiritual music, with her most fruitful and prominent period of success coming in the 70s and 80s. Stella scored a long string of moderate and minor hits on Billboard's country chart, including the 1975 top 10 single I Want to Hold You in My Dreams Tonight, followed by top 20 smashes like Standard Lie No. 1, The Danger of a Stranger, and 4 Little Letters. How does Stella's voice sound? Some might say a lot like that of Dolly, which helped offer audiences a seamless transition when Stella starred in a touring production of the musical The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, just after Dolly headlined the film version. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, country went pop thanks to the John Travolta movie Urban Cowboy and performers with mainstream appeal like Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton. In the wake of that, Dolly's brother Randy Parton signed a deal with RCA Records and released a few recordings. In 1982, he appeared on the country showcase show Pop Goes the Country to perform Roll On 18-Wheeler, a rock-tinged tune about a long-haul trucker. That song wasn't a hit for Randy, but in 1984, Alabama covered it and took it to number 1 on the country chart. In the early 80s, he had a few moderate successes of his own, such as the top 30 hits Hold Me Like You Never Had Me and Shot Full of Love. As the decade progressed, Randy collaborated with his very successful sister more, playing bass in her live band and backing her up as a member of the Cut and Slice Band in her 1984 musical comedy Rhinestone. In the mid-2000s, Randy struck a lucrative deal with the city of Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, which paid him a $1.5 million annual salary to manage and perform at the Randy Parton Theater, the centerpiece of a planned entertainment complex. He also got a fully furnished home and a use of a car in the deal. By 2008, Randy had left the project after a series of business disagreements. He passed away in January 2021. Beginning in his early 20s, Floyd Parton toiled as a songwriter in the Nashville country music scene for years. Some of his biggest successes arrived when his big-voiced older sister took a hold of him. Floyd and Dolly Parton's collaborative composition Nickels and Dimes was included on the latter's 1978 album Heartbreaker, and Floyd alone wrote Waltz Me to Heaven, a soundtrack cut from Dolly's 1984 movie Rhinestone. In 1991, Dolly and Ricky Van Shelton made a duet out of Floyd's Rockin' Years, which went all the way to number 1 on the country chart. Floyd also wrote songs for George Jones and 2 of his other musically inclined family members, Stella and his twin sister Frida. Floyd passed away in December 2018 at the age of 61. Dolly Parton gave acting a shot in the 1980s, starting with 9 to 5, a dark comedy about workplace revenge co-starring Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. Released in 1980, the film earned $103 million, meaning it was popular enough for ABC to adapt it into a sitcom in 1982. Parton was a little too busy and famous to reprise her role as Dorothy Rhodes, so producers instead cast 22-year-old Hollywood newcomer Rachel Dennison. She bore an uncanny resemblance to Parton, which is to be expected since Dennison is Parton's younger sister. Prior to her role on TV's 9 to 5, Dennison worked as a makeup artist for her superstar sibling. She got her chance at TV stardom when Jane Fonda visited Parton at the Grand Ole Opry in 1981. Upon meeting her sister, Fonda thought Dennison would be perfect for the sitcom adaptation of 9 to 5, which she was producing. She told People, "I asked Dolly's permission to bring Rachel out to read for the part. As soon as she stepped foot on the lot, everyone started calling, asking who she was." 9 to 5 lasted 5 seasons, with Dennison appearing in all 85 episodes, but after the show wrapped in 1988, she never acted again. More than a decade younger than her celebrity sister, Frida Parton left the family home in Tennessee at age 13 to go live with Dolly Parton in Nashville. Not yet 20, she married Mark Anderson, part of Dolly's backing band, and together they'd collaborate on Sing for the Common Man, a track which appeared on her sister's 1980 album 9 to 5 and Odd Jobs. Soon after, Frida landed a record deal and released her debut LP Two-Faced in 1984. Unlike her musically inclined siblings, Frida didn't show much interest in country and its associated genres. Two-Faced is a pretty heavy hard rock album. Outside of music, Frida has lived a colorful life. As of 2014, she's been married and divorced 4 times, but still believes in love, opening and subsequently managing and performing services at the Parton Family Wedding Chapel in Sevierville, Tennessee. Dolly Parton has always proudly embraced her heritage as a member of a big family from rural Tennessee. Her sister, Willie Parton, emerged as the family's historian, capturing in print the Partons' collective childhoods and along the way becoming a chronicler of a broader culture at large. Usually going by the pen name of simply Willie Dean, the author in the family has published 3 books: In the Shadow of a Song, The Story of the Parton Family in 1985, Smoky Mountain Memories, Stories from the Hearts of the Parton Family in 1996, and All Day Singing and Dinner on the Ground in 1997, a collection of stories and classic Southern recipes. In 2013, Dolly Parton made a special appearance at her Dollywood theme park and entertainment complex to unveil a new section of the Chasing Rainbows Museum, one dedicated to her maternal uncle Bill Owens, her first manager and champion of her musical skills. Standing beside him at the ribbon-cutting ceremony, she recalled, "He saw me when I was just a little thing, singing my songs and doing my stuff, saying, 'Hey, I think we can make some money at this.'"
So he's actually been the one that's helped me more than anybody else through the years.
Parton was about 10 years old and washing dishes when Owens, a singer, songwriter, and guitar player, took notice. As he later said, "I thought she could be a star the first time I heard her in that kitchen." Before long, he took her to sing on the Cass Walker Show, a Knoxville, Tennessee-based radio variety show. Producers were so impressed they hired Parton to be a regular performer, and Dolly realized she'd found the thing that she was going to do for the rest of her life. When Parton got a bit older, she started writing songs with Owens, and they landed a deal with Combine Music, then formed their own music publishing company, Opar. One of the duo's first and biggest professional successes came when country star Bill Phillips recorded hit versions of their songs The Company You Keep and Put It Off Until Tomorrow. As Parton became a major star in the 1970s, Owens continued to strike it big as a songwriter, penning tunes for the likes of Loretta Lynn, Ricky Skaggs, Crystal Gale, and Chris Christopherson. A.B. Lee Parton was a mother of 12 by the time she was 35, and so she delegated child-rearing duties of some of the younger kids to some of her older kids. At a 2015 press event promoting Coat of Many Colors, the TV movie about her childhood in Tennessee, Parton told reporters about the way the kids chipped in to help raise each other. "My mother, through the years, when we were born, since there were so many of us, used to say, 'This one is going to be you, baby.' That just meant that you got to take extra care of it. You have to get up with it at night and rock it back and forth." Upon his birth in July 1955, newborn Larry Parton was assigned in such a manner to Dolly, age 9 at the time. Tragically, the newest addition to the Parton brood suffered from health problems, and just 4 days after he was born, he passed away. Parton said that it was tough to address and relive the heartache surrounding Larry's death when it was depicted on screen in Coat of Many Colors. But in life, she said, even pain is worth it. As she put it, "All things are hard, but that's what makes your memories. That's what makes you who and what you are." Born into a huge family, Dolly Parton didn't grow up to have a big brood of her own. She never had biological children, but that suited her just fine. Parton told People Country, "Several of my brothers and sisters came to live with me early on in my life. I've loved their kids just like they're my grandkids." She also added that her many nieces and nephews have a nickname for her, Aunt Granny. One of those nieces is singer Heidi Parton. Daughter of Randy Parton and his wife Deb, Heidi started regularly performing at her aunt's Dollywood theme park at the age of 4 up until she turned 19. Sadly, the Parton family lost one of its own in 2017. Teaver Parton, Dolly Parton's niece and Heidi Parton's older sister, passed away at age 36 in March 2017. Dolly Parton makes a lot of public appearances, but generally does them alone. It's not that the enchanting singer is forever single. She's been married to her first and only husband, Carl Dean, since 1966, a man who doesn't want to have anything to do with show business. Parton's husband is so rarely photographed that some have theorized that he doesn't actually exist. Speaking about her spouse, Parton told Entertainment Tonight, "A lot of people have thought that through the years because he does not want to be in the spotlight at all. It's just not who he is. He's like a quiet, reserved person, and he figured if he ever got out there in that, he'd never get a minute's peace, and he's right about that. When they do go out together," she says, "it's not to gallivant around the world. Instead, it's to take private little adventures in their RV to do things like hit up the Taco Bell drive-thru, which Dean has plenty of time to do ever since he retired from running his asphalt paving business."
How could you what's your secret? I said, well, I stay gone. It's like it stays new. Actually, my husband's a homebody, and I love to travel.
At least one of Parton's most famous songs is about her husband. Her 1973 hit Jolene concerned a redheaded temptress with designs on the narrator's man. and the singer begs and pleads to not steal him away with her wiles and beauty beyond compare. While Jolene's name and appearance came from a young Van Parton met in the 1960s, the character is based on a bank teller who flirted heavily with Dean. Parton told NPR's All Things Considered, "She got this terrible crush on my husband, and he just loved going to the bank because she paid him so much attention. It was kind of like a running joke between us." Not every member of Dolly Parton's large family sought a career in entertainment. Unlike the Jackson family from nearby Indiana, in which every kid gave music a try, a few of the Partons of Tennessee hung back and have lived private, quiet lives, at least compared to Dolly, the music legend, movie star, and theme park entrepreneur. Among them, Cassie Nan Parton dabbles in music, and in 2013, she performed alongside her more outgoing siblings in My People, a live show at Dollywood. She also has a brother named Bobby Lee Parton, who stayed in Tennessee, as well as another brother named Coy Denver Parton, the father of 2 daughters, one of whom he named Dolly. 30 years of flirting, a funeral tribute, and a weird Trump comparison? Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers were one of the most iconic duos in music history, but were they just musical partners, close friends, or more? Music royalty is filled with legendary pairings: John Lennon and Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel, Daryl Hall and John Oates, and, of course, Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers. There's something undeniably electric about their on-stage appearances. Watch them perform together, and it's clear that they not only truly love what they do, but they genuinely adore each other. Their successful friendship and musical partnership has led to some memorable and enduring classics, and their combined stardom lit up the country music world for decades. Parton and Rogers' obvious chemistry led to persistent rumors that they were romantically involved, but Parton has been wed to her beloved husband Carl since 1966, and Rogers married 5 different women in his 81 years. Rogers commented on his inability to stay committed to one woman in a 2012 interview with Anderson Cooper, saying,
I don't think I hurt anybody. I don't think I was fair to them.
Both Rogers and Parton had to answer questions about the relationship many times since they first met, and went on the record repeatedly to talk about it. And while it's hard for us now to even imagine a world before Kenny and Dolly, she was already a well-established star and he was a rising talent when they first met. That first encounter came when he appeared on her television show Dolly in 1976. Rogers admitted that he and Parton didn't necessarily hit it off right away, telling The Atlantic, "I would like to say that we became immediate friends, but we didn't. I was just another guest in the mix of her very busy schedule." Fast forward to 1983 when the Bee Gees, Barry, Robin, and Morris Gibb, brought a song they had written to Rogers, who couldn't quite make it work on his own. He told Taste of Country in 2013,
"And I finally said, Barry, I don't even like this song anymore." And he said, "We need Dolly Parton."
Ken Cragen, who was at the time both Rogers and the Bee Gees' manager, said he had seen her in the studio offices, and Rogers told him,
I said, "Well, go get her." And Dolly, in her inimitable fashion, marched into the room, and the song was never the same.
The rest, as they say, is music history. Rogers later wrote in his memoir, "I've lived through earthquakes in California, twisters in Kansas, and hurricanes in Georgia, but nothing prepared me for working with Dolly." Islands of the Stream was released in 1983. Kenny and Dolly went on tour together, did a Christmas album and special, and recorded more duets. All the while, their undeniable chemistry kept rumors flowing about whether they were just friends or something more. But knowing more about their common experiences growing up definitely explains why they became so close so quickly as adults. Parton was one of 12 children and grew up in the Tennessee mountains. Money was always scarce for the Partons, but young Dolly discovered her love of music in church. She was given a guitar as a gift, and with her incredible talent, there was no looking back. Rogers was one of 7 children and spent his early years living in a federal housing project in Houston, Texas. It was up to Kenny to buy himself his first guitar, which he finally was able to do in high school. Parton got an earlier start. She was just 10 years old when she started performing on local TV and radio stations, and appeared alongside her uncle Bill Owens at the Grand Ole Opry when she was just 13. She told A&E's biography that neither she nor Rogers had forgotten where they came from, and their common upbringing brought them closer.
He, like me, was brought up very poor. We understood that world and how much we wanted things.
Despite the fact that Parton had been happily married for the entire time she's known Rogers, she has constantly faced questions about their relationship. She always insisted that they were good friends, and even noted that their friendship extended to their respective touring groups. She told People in 2013, "We'd eat, hang out, and we found we really liked each other. It was a wonderful group of people. My band members, his band members, everybody was like family. Kenny was always like a relative to me." Rogers certainly felt the temptation, but told HuffPost Live host Mark Lamont Hill that any lingering tension only added life to their friendship.
We just teased each other, and we flirted with each other for 30 years.
He went on to say that Parton was truly one of the most valued people in his life, and someone with whom he felt an enduring and unbreakable connection. Given how close they were as friends and how much they enjoyed working together, Rogers didn't want to disrupt that for a shot at romance. He told People, "We may have been tempted, but we didn't want to ruin a good friendship. I think it would have." Parton agreed, saying that they had both seen too many friendships ruined by going to the next step. "We never did go there. There was always so much other stuff going for us, so much love and friendship." Rogers always acknowledged that Parton was already married and had been for a long time when they first met. As for any possibility that she might stray in his direction, she said, "He's been married about 40 times. I couldn't catch him between wives." The pair even joked about the idea on the Today Show. Rogers claimed, "First of all, she's hard to look at for me." Parton responded that she wasn't Rogers' type, to which he countered, "I'm a believer that tension is better if you keep it than if you satisfy it." And then secondly, she said no to me. But Parton set the record straight, saying that they were too close to get together in that way. "You know what, we were almost like brother and sister, so we just never went there." The bottom line, they just meant too much to each other to jeopardize their friendship, marriages, and professional success. If anyone would have had a right to be jealous of Dolly and Kenny's friendship, it would have been their spouses. Rogers was married to Mary Ann Gordon from 1977 until 1993, when he and Parton were recording their biggest hits and touring together. But Gordon told Closer Weekly that she never worried about her husband having an affair with Parton, saying, "I never felt uncomfortable at all. I just knew him so well." She admits their divorce was difficult, but insists Parton had nothing to do with it, blaming it on Rogers' simultaneous midlife and career crises. Apparently, at that time, Rogers was even having nightmares where he came out on stage only to find an empty theater, and he genuinely feared the end of his career had come. But she remains fond of their time together, saying, "He was so sweet. I always felt his total focus was on me." Even country music legends like Dolly Parton have had celebrity crushes. In an interview with The Big Crush, she confessed to having pined for another Tennessee music megastar long before she was famous herself. Parton met Johnny Cash when she was first starting out in the music business, and to the wide-eyed 13-year-old, he was nothing short of magical. She told The Big Issue, "Johnny was all strung out on drugs and everything, but he was so magnetic, so sexy. He was my first male grown-up crush. He just really moved me. He always got a kick out of that." While Cash found it hilarious that he'd been Parton's first love, she was more fortunate in her first meeting with Rogers, telling Biography, "You never really know when you're going to run across somebody that's just going to be partners for life." Parton and Rogers have spoken candidly about their feelings for each other, and it's pretty adorable stuff. Parton told Country Fancast in 2017 just how close they were, saying, "Kenny's friendship means more to me than our hit records. Actually, we're kind of soulmates." She used the same word again to describe her relationship with Rogers in the intro to the You Can't Make Old Friends video. She thought the song summed up their relationship perfectly, telling Pop Matters, "That song was very emotional because of our relationship and the fact that we're both older. And when we were talking about when St. Peter knocks on the door and you come walking in, it makes you think." Songwriter Don Schlitz, who also wrote Rogers' biggest hit, The Gambler, said penning the song was one of the high points of his career, saying, "It's a great honor to be a part of that." Like any other close friends, Kenny and Dolly have had some awkward moments. Parton has always refused to come right out and say just what her political stance is. She usually deflects questions with a joke, or just says outright that she has too many fans from all walks of life to alienate anyone by coming down on one side of the fence or the other. She told WJHL in Johnson City, Tennessee in 2018,
You'll find me and my opinions, in a lot of the songs, but most of it's based on love and acceptance and lifting people up.
On the other hand, Rogers made it clear that he was a Donald Trump supporter. He told The Guardian in 2015, "I really like him. I think his problem is that he says what everyone wants to hear, but he doesn't say it well. I love what he says, I have to admit." Still, it was pretty surprising when Rogers compared Parton to Trump during one of his shows, saying, "She has no filter. If it goes in her mind, it comes out of her mouth, and that's what makes her special. She's become the Donald Trump of country music." She addressed the comparison in an interview with Rolling Stone in her typical disarming way, saying, "Me and Donald kind of have the same hair. You could have meant that, too." Parton didn't let that one awkward comment disrupt their amazing friendship and has never been shy about letting Rogers know how much he meant to her. Rogers told Southern Living that during the recording sessions for You Can't Make Old Friends, he noticed she had left her booth. "She came into my part of the studio and she put her arms around my neck and said, 'Kenny, I think you should know I could never sing at your funeral.' I love her. I love her for that. You never know what she's going to say, but it always comes from love." That love came out in each and every one of the Powerhouse Duo's performances, and it continued to shine right through their very last time on stage together. Rogers officially retired in 2018, citing health reasons. His final performance came in a star-studded tribute special called Kenny Rogers All In for the Gambler, which was filmed in 2017 and aired in June of 2021, more than a year after his death. Parton joined him for several songs, and the duo wrapped up the show with a smash hit that started it all, Islands in the Stream. The concert was full of touching moments, like Parton's performance of I Will Always Love You, which she led off by telling Rogers, I have a spot in my heart for you that's never ever going to be touched by anybody else. Rogers told Closer Weekly that the show was a farewell gift from his old friend, who wasn't going to let him disappear without a celebration. Rogers was grateful, saying, "You either have old friends or you don't, and I've always had a friend in Dolly." When Rogers died in March of 2020, he had sold more than 100 million records and logged more than 50 top 40 country singles. Parton found out about his death the same way the rest of us did, by turning on the news. She posted a touching video tribute to her Twitter feed saying,
I'm pretty sure he's going to be talking to God sometime today if he ain't already, and he's going to be asking him to spread some light.
Parton was clearly devastated by the loss of her longtime friend and collaborator and added,
My heart's broken, and a big old chunk of it has gone with him today.
Two icons of country music, one lifelong friendship. Dolly Parton and Loretta Lynn shared more than the stage in their storied careers. Loretta Lynn and Dolly Parton are not just two of the most iconic and beloved women in country music history, they also have quite a bit in common and shared a long and treasured friendship. Lynn was born Loretta Webb on April 14, 1932, to a coal miner father and homemaker mother, and grew up the second of 8 children in a cabin in Butcher Hollow, Kentucky, or as Loretta called it, Butcher Holler. She married her husband and future manager Oliver Lynn when she was just 15 years old, and the couple moved to Washington State, where she started performing. She told this story in her best-selling autobiography Coal Miner's Daughter, named for one of her signature songs. The book would go on to be adapted into an acclaimed movie starring Sissy Spacek, who won an Oscar for her portrayal of Lynn.
You really think I sing good?
Baby, I know you do.
Parton was born on January 19, 1946, and was the fourth of 12 children in a family that lived in a cabin in Locust Ridge, Tennessee. She started performing on local television at 10 and made her first appearance at the Grand Ole Opry when she was just 13 years old. She moved to Nashville right after high school and met her husband, Carl Dean, at a laundromat on her very first day there. Like Lynn, she's incorporated her hardscrabble Appalachian upbringing into many autobiographical songs, including Coat of Many Colors, which tells the story of wearing a homemade coat made of leftover scraps of fabric to school and getting teased by her classmates. In 2020, Dolly Parton wrote the foreword for Loretta Lynn's book, Me and Patsy Kickin' Up Dust, My Friendship with Patsy Cline. She described how she and Lynn got to know each other because they were both girl singers on popular country variety television shows. Parton on The Porter Wagoner Show and Lynn on The Wilburn Brothers Show. Parton pointed out that both she and Lynn sometimes eclipsed our male counterparts, which caused friction. I think we could both smile with each other and say, "Hey girl, we're doing all right, ain't we?" In the 1980s, Parton had her own variety show and Lynn appeared on it. The two performed a medley of Lynn's classic songs, and the warmth and familiarity between the two singers are obvious as they exchange looks and smiles throughout their performance, including verses from Coal Miner's Daughter, You Ain't Woman Enough to Take My Man, and The Pill. In 1993, Parton and Lynn joined another country legend, Tammy Wynette, to make the album Honky Tonk Angels. The supergroup was Parton's idea. She'd wanted to bring together female country singers who'd broken through in the 1960s and brought a wider audience to the genre. The trio recorded several classics, including Silver Threads and Golden Needles. During their live performance at the Country Music Awards, Dolly called Loretta and Tammy her girlfriends and her idols. Dolly Parton and Loretta Lynn have continued to inspire and support each other on and off the internet in recent years. After Parton unveiled her meme on Instagram, in which she displayed pictures of herself in various get-ups suitable for LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and Tinder, winkingly captioned, "Get you a woman who can do it all," Lynn followed suit. She wrote, "After my family told me about Dolly's challenge, I figured I had to join in. Mostly." Lynn conspicuously left off a photo suitable for Tinder, including the hilarious hashtagged phrases, "Loretta don't Tinder," and "Love me Tinder has a whole new meaning." In December 2019, Parton took to Facebook and posted a throwback photo of her and Lynn posing together in their younger days, captioned, "Friends Forever." When Lynn turned 90 in April 2022, Parton was one of many country legends to participate in a video tribute to Lynn. She closes out the tribute and sings Happy Birthday, Dear Loretta, with a special edition of We Will Always Love You at the end. When Lynn died on October 4, 2022, Parton once again joined in a chorus of well-wishers and mourners celebrating the life of the venerable Lynn, posting on Twitter, "So sorry to hear about my sister, friend Loretta. We've been like sisters all the years we've been in Nashville, and she was a wonderful human being, wonderful talent, had millions of fans, and I'm one of them. I will miss her dearly, as we all will. May she rest in peace."
Dolly Parton has found a way to appeal to people of all different backgrounds, political views, and musical preferences, and a lot of that comes from her charming and winning roles as an actress. Here are some of Dolly Parton's best movie and TV appearances. 9 to 5 is a female empowerment comedy cult classic that still holds resonance in today's conversation about gender politics in the workplace. a young Dolly Parton made her film debut and proved her acting chops along with her singing talents in this role. She was nominated for an Oscar for Best Original Song for 9 to 5 in 1981. And she also received her first 3 Golden Globe nominations for Best Actress, Best Song, and New Star of the Year. Dolly plays a secretary named Dora Lee, who endures harassment from her boss, Mr. Hart. She and fellow female co-workers, Judy, played by Jane Fonda, and Violet, played by Lily Tomlin, get together one night over drinks and spin revenge fantasies about their boss. Pretty soon, the trio are putting their ideas into action, and the hijinks lead to kidnapping as they take over the office in his name.
What the hell is going on? Who authorized all this?
You did, Mr. Hart. It's your signature.
Oh, that's very funny.
There was talk of a sequel for decades, but according to Entertainment Weekly, that was officially scrapped in 2019. That doesn't stop Dolly, Jane, and Lily from still making appearances together once in a while, like at the 2019 Primetime Emmys, where they received a standing ovation. Starring alongside Burt Reynolds in this musical comedy based on a Broadway play of the same name, Dolly Parton shines as singer-actress in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, playing Mona, a madam of a local brothel. Believe it or not, the story is based on a real place, the Texas Chicken Ranch in LaGrange, Texas, which closed in 1973. The Chicken Ranch had been in operation since 1918, and during the Great Depression, the madam in charge at the time would take chickens as payment, according to Wide Open Country. Truth is truly stranger than fiction. In the film, Burt Reynolds plays local sheriff Ed Earl Dodd, who fights to keep the brothel open after a reporter questions its legality. Dolly insisted on singing some of her original songs in the film, including a rendition of her hit song, I Will Always Love You. She and Reynolds also sang the famous duet, Sneakin' Around. Parton received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Comedy, or Musical in 1983. Parton certainly gets paired with some strange love interests. In Rhinestone, Parton plays Jake Farris, whose mission is to make New York cab driver Nick, played by Sylvester Stallone, into a country singer overnight in order to nab a contract with a club manager. The film was based on the hit Glenn Campbell song Rhinestone Cowboy. The result was, well, kind of embarrassing, especially for Stallone, who actually sings, and it's not a hidden talent of his, if you were wondering. He doesn't even look like he enjoys singing on screen, which makes the performance all the more agonizing. Dolly, though, is all charm and smiles, of course. Stallone turned down lead roles in Romancing the Stone and Beverly Hills Cop to make Rhinestone, and it's no secret that he regretted his choice. Of course, Dolly sings. She even garnered 2 top 10 country singles for her songs Tennessee Homesick Blues and God Won't Get You. The film wasn't exactly a success. It even got a few Razzie Award nominations, including Razzie wins for Worst Actor and Worst Original Song for Dolly's Drinkenstein. We can go ahead and blame that one on Stallone too, who drunkenly groans through the number. But true blue Dolly fans enjoy the film for its musical performances and fun, campy acting. Dolly stars in the sweet fairy tale A Smoky Mountain Christmas as country music star Lorna Davis, who finds refuge from her chaotic life in Los Angeles in the, yep, you guessed it, Smoky Mountains, at a friend's cabin right around, right you are, Christmas. She then runs into some strange and lovable characters, including a witch and 7 seriously adorable orphan children on her journey. Her first made-for-TV Christmas film was, and still is, a wholesome classic tradition for many Dolly fans during the holidays. Does this story sound familiar? That's because Dolly basically becomes the Smoky Mountains version of Snow White, with the children acting as her 7 dwarves. The witch tries to poison Lorna with an apple pie, but all's well that ends well in this Christmas gem. Did we mention there's also a lot of singing? Dolly performs nearly a dozen Christmas tunes, including the classic Here Comes Santa Claus and her own song, Country Memories. If Hallmark Channel had been around in 1986, this would have definitely been on it. A classic film and a certified tearjerker, Steel Magnolias has an all-star cast, including Dolly Parton as hairstylist and beauty shop owner Truvy Jones. Based on the book and play by Robert Harling, the story touches on some very dark family topics, including diabetic pregnancy. Shelby, played by a young Julia Roberts, decides to get pregnant despite the life and death medical risks involved with her type 1 diabetes diagnosis. According to The Atlantic, the touching storyline is based on Harling's sister's experience with the disease, which is possibly why it comes across as so real and personable. Over the course of the film, Shelby decides to go against the medical advice she receives to become a mom, and the film's cast of close-knit women find ways to support her in her journey, even if they don't all agree with it. Steel Magnolias has been praised as a celebration of women. It is rare for a film's stars to be all women, while the male characters take a back seat. Dolly's character Truvy was created for Harling's friend, Margot Martindale, who played the character off-Broadway. Apparently, the film's director, Herb Ross, was not a huge fan of Parton. The cast of ladies have discussed Ross years later, divulging that he was not only harsh on Roberts, but said to Dolly, quote, "Why don't you take some acting lessons?" To which Sally Field exclaimed, quote, "You don't say that to Dolly Parton." To this day, the film's cult audience couldn't imagine the movie without her. This one is almost like watching a warped B-movie set to music. The made-for-television film, co-starring Gary Busey of all people, features Dolly as an aspiring country singer, Theola Rayfield, who isn't having the best luck with her career. While singing in nightclubs on the road, she meets Justice Parker, that's Busey, the owner of a Texas club, and they fall in love. But it turns out that Justice is an alcoholic with mental health issues who physically abuses Theola. When he's murdered, she becomes one of the suspects. Wild Texas Wind gets a lot of criticism for not handling domestic violence the right way, but it generally received positive reviews. Plus, it co-stars Willie Nelson, so it has that going for it. A sequel and studio album were both discussed, but neither ever materialized. Another oddball film featuring an unexpected love interest for Dolly is Straight Talk. This time her paramour is played by James Woods, while Dolly plays a lovable Southern failed dance instructor named Shirley, who leaves her boyfriend and moves to Chicago to start anew as a modern career woman. Shirley quickly finds herself working for a sleeper hit psychiatric radio show and becomes an accidental radio psychologist. It's also a romantic musical comedy. Sounds strange? It is. But it's worth it to see Parton's charismatic performance. She was easily hailed as the best part of the film, and quite possibly its only saving grace, as Woods was savaged by critics. Empire wrote that Woods, quote, looks terrible and is less happily employed with quite the most excruciatingly corny lines of his career. Ouch. The late great critic Roger Ebert gave Straight Talk only 2 stars, but while he panned the film in general, he did single out Dolly for praise. Now there's a critic who knew what he was talking about. In this light-hearted, feel-good story, Dolly plays a narcissistic singer named Ruby Diamond who dies suddenly by crashing her car after avoiding a deer on a country road. Ruby enters heaven and discovers that because she was willing to risk her life for a deer, she has a chance to stick around. However, she has to pay her dues first. Angel in charge, Peter, tasks Ruby with helping a dysfunctional family come together after the death of the matriarch in time for Christmas. Ruby accepts the challenge and becomes the family's new nanny, even singing and playing guitar for the forlorn young'uns. Dolly composed original songs for Unlikely Angel with help from Velton Ray Bunch. The film follows the classic Christmas Carol tropes, with Parton essentially playing Ebenezer Scrooge, and even has a little Sound of Music thrown in because why not? Hey, they said it was unlikely. In Blue Valley Songbird, a made-for-television flick that aired on Lifetime, Dolly plays Nashville singer Leanna Taylor, who channels music as a kind of therapeutic method in order to face her troubled childhood. Parton was inspired to make the movie after writing the song Blue Valley Songbird. According to her official website, Dolly said, "As soon as I wrote the song, I had full intentions of making a movie from it. In my mind, I thought, this is like a screenplay." Dolly executive produced the film and was very involved throughout the process. She said, "I felt it was very important to find Southern people to write this script. The writers we chose were both from the South, so they had an understanding of it." Dolly Parton paired up with fellow powerhouse performer Queen Latifah for this film, which celebrates the church choir with a lively rock gospel musical. Latifah plays Vi Rose Hill, opposite Parton as Gigi Sparrow, two friendly rivals in a church choir. A young Keke Palmer is cast as the choir's young starlet and Queen Latifah's daughter, Olivia. Parton and Latifah enjoy playing off of each other as polar opposites. Vi Rose is pious, humble, and God-fearing, whereas Gigi is loud, gaudy, and audacious.
Who gives a rat's ass if I've had a few little nips and tucks? God didn't make plastic surgeons so they could starve.
Parton wrote and performed 2 new original songs for the film, though most of the music is dominated by covers of well-known favorites from various genres. The film's raucous finale is a Glee-like mashup of songs by Usher, Sly Stone, and Stevie Wonder, among others. While some critics panned Joyful Noise for being embarrassingly cheesy, others lovingly refer to it as the unofficial Sister Act 3. Everyone loves a good Christmas movie, especially if it stars a country music legend who sings Christmas songs about her own life. Yes, it's true. Christmas of Many Colors, Circle of Love is a Dolly Parton biopic and acts as a sequel to her film Coat of Many Colors. The story focuses on Dolly's childhood growing up poor in the Smoky Mountains. Dolly narrates, giving the audience some background as the story unfolds, and of course her songs supply the musical backdrop. Deeply personal songs like Nickels and Dimes make for a heartfelt experience, while Ricky Schroeder and Jennifer Nettles give moving performances as Dolly's parents. It's safe to say that making Christmas of Many Colors Circle of Love was a true labor of love for Dolly. Maybe the most unusual appearance Dolly Parton has ever made in a movie is the Netflix film Dumplin', because technically, she doesn't actually appear in it. However, she was the driving force and guiding light behind the film. And though Dolly herself doesn't show up on screen, her music is used throughout, especially in some key sequences, featuring drag queens performing Dolly hits in a burlesque medley. The story follows teen Willadine Dixon, played by Danielle McDonald, whose mother, played by Jennifer Aniston, is a former pageant queen in small-town Texas. When mom puts on a pageant, Willadine decides to enter as a protest against the imposition of mainstream beauty standards, with the Dolly impersonators providing full support. Screenwriter Kristen Hahn, who adapted the story from the best-selling young adult novel by Julie Murphy, said about Dolly, she ended up being, essentially, a fairy godmother to the movie. Dolly's manager was a fan of the script and approached Dolly enthusiastically about the project. It turned out that Dolly had a copy of the book already sitting on her bookshelf, so not only did Dolly help the film get made, but she paired up with Linda Perry to curate the soundtrack, which features original versions of Dolly classics Dumb Blonde and Jolene.